Laura Murphy, I can't believe it. What are you doing in the hospital?
Laura knew the voice. He'd said Mass every week and visited the orphanage. She wanted to pull the covers over her head. She couldn't meet his eyes. Her legs trembled so much she assumed he could see the bed shaking. She kept her eyes shut, hoping he'd think she was asleep or passed out or maybe even dead. A nurse walked by and she heard the priest speaking to her. Their whispers were too low for her to make out what they were saying. She didn't dare open her eyes to have a look. Maybe he would leave. The seat creaking beside the bed told her he'd stayed.
Laura, what happened to you? They said you'd been shot.
She ignored him.
Laura, stop pretending you can't hear me. I won't leave until you talk to me. Didn't I tell you to come find me if you ever needed help?
She opened her eyes. Yes, Father.
So why didn't you come?
I couldn't, Father. I am not the same girl who left the convent 2 years ago.
What happened to you? Last time I heard, you'd gotten a job in a store.
I met my husband in the store. Johnny Dawson. You heard of him?
Father Malloy stared at her, the shock evident in his white face. You married Johnny Dawson? He's a murderer, not to mention a...
He was. He's dead.
Laura fought to gain control of her voice.
I didn't know, Father. He looked like a gentleman. We weren't married long before I found out who he was. He wasn't interested in a wife. I'm not even sure whether our marriage was real or not.
Oh, you poor child.
Father Malloy patted her hand, but Laura drew back from him. He wanted me because of my special talents.
You are a beautiful young lady, Laura.
Laura laughed hysterically. It wasn't my looks he was interested in. Well, not really. He believed I was a witch. Maybe I am. I wished him dead, and now he is. Laura turned her head to let the tears soak into the pillow.
Laura Murphy, you are no more a witch than I am. What nonsense!
Mother Superior said I was evil. She used to tie my hand behind my back as I wrote with my left hand. She set the mark... Laura bit her tongue. She'd said too much already. She looked around fearfully, but it didn't look like anyone had heard her.
What mark?
I have the witch's mark on my body. I can't show you, Father. It wouldn't be proper. Father Malloy didn't flinch. He stayed silent for a couple of minutes. Laura wondered what he was thinking. Was he going to turn her over to the authorities? They still tried people for being witches, didn't they? Johnny said they did. Of course she knew about the Salem witch trials held nearly 200 years ago, but she'd assumed they were history until he told her the last trial was in 1878. That was less than 10 years ago. She could still hear his voice goading her. She had shared her story with him in the early days of their marriage after he'd seen the birthmark. She'd been so naive and trusting.